Hey everyone, Kevin here, Excellence in Church Music. It's been a little while, but wanted to put out the next video here on the hymn playing course. And today we get into some of the fun stuff that I'm sure many of you are looking forward to and wanting to learn about. We're going to be talking about how to add runs, and that's usually what I hear many times from people. They're wanting to know, how do I add runs? I know how to play basic hymn playing, but how do I add to it? And so this is the video for you. This is the one you've been waiting for. Okay, so I'm looking here at When We All Get to Heaven, and we're in the key of D flat. And so we're looking at how to add runs, specifically in the right hand right now. The main concept I want to get across, first of all, is that when we add runs, we always want to add them at places where I will call holes in the music. And so what is a hole? I consider a hole a place where there is a long note duration, basically a place where not a whole lot is going on in the melody of the song. So for instance, right here at the end of this first line, sing his mercy and his grace, we have two beats here where there's nothing going on in the right hand. Nothing at all is happening there. We're just holding that melody note for two beats before starting on this next line here. So this is what I would call a hole. And they can be of various lengths. This one's not super long, but it is two beats where we're not doing anything. There's some that are longer. So for instance, here we've got 3 beats where our melody note stays the same. Here we've got 3 beats here as well where our melody note just stays the same. So a lot of times it's at the end of a line, especially at the end of a chorus going into the verse, or maybe at the end of the song going into the next verse. Here we've got just this whole note here, and I know we have some chord changes underneath, but the melody itself doesn't really move. So these are places that I would call holes, and those are great spots to add in a run. So let's say you've got a spot like in this song. Let's look at this one right here. We've got our hole here. We've got these 2 beats. Nothing's going on in the right hand. Let's say we want to add a run in our right hand here to kind of bridge the gap between this and the next measure here. So what you always do in this scenario is, first of all, you want to look at your next downbeat, which happens to be right here. The very next note is the downbeat of the next measure. So find your hole and then find the next note after that that's the downbeat. In this case, that happens to be the very next note here. Okay? So this gives us our ending. So whatever run we do, we want to end our melody note in our right hand on this A flat that the sopranos are singing here. So wherever we start our run, however we pull it off, we know that we want to end it running right into an A flat. That's how you want to try to pull your runs off smoothly, is you want them to land. I use the word land and end interchangeably a lot of times, but you want to land that run right on the downbeat of the next measure, which would be right here, okay? So here we're singing his mercy and his grace. We play this F here, and then we've got 2 beats to do some kind of run that's going to land right on the downbeat, right where it's supposed to, on this A flat here. So a lot of times a good place to start with runs is to just do scales. So instead of trying to do a bunch of fancy arpeggio or make up some fancy kind of riff or something like that, you'll just use stepwise or scale-wise motion to step into this note. Also, rhythmically, a lot of times it's good to start with just doing 8th notes before you get into really fast 32nd or 16th note or triplet runs, just to do a simple 8th note run. So let's take this as an example. Let's say, sing his mercy and his grace. Let's say that we play the word grace, and then we hold it for 1 beat, and then we use that second beat as our run. And that's going to run into beat 1 here, okay? So what that means is, if I'm taking one of these beats from the word grace and I'm using that for my run, and I'm doing 8th notes, that means if I've got a full beat, but I'm dividing it into 8th notes, I'll have 2 8th notes before I get to this A flat here. Does that make sense? we're going to play "And His Grace," 1, 2, 3, and then on beat 4, we're going to play a run that's going to end on beat 1 with the word "in" on A flat. So that means since I'm choosing to do eighth notes, again, you don't have to do eighth notes, it's just a pretty simple place to start, okay? Since I'm choosing to do an eighth note run on beat 4, that means I have 2 eighth notes that I can play, and then the next one needs to be my A flat, okay? So if we are in the key of D flat here, and I want to do an upward scale that's going to end with the 3rd note being on A flat, then it's just a matter of counting through my scale. So let's do this at the piano. Okay, so here we are at the piano. We're in the key of D flat. Okay, we've just finished "And His Grace," and we're ending on the F. Remember that the word grace is on the word F. So we play that for 1 beat, and then we have 2 eighth notes, and then our 3rd needs to be the A flat. Well, this is very simple. All we have to do then is we can just play from the F up to the A flat. So, "And His Grace," 4 and 1. We can take that 4th beat and play the run. So remember, this is just a matter of simple counting. We counted that we had 2 eighth notes worth of run that we could do, and then the 3rd one needed to be the A flat. So all we can do is we can just take that A flat and work backwards. Okay, if A flat is the 3rd note, then let's just work backwards down our D flat scale. Okay, then the 2nd would need to be this, and then the 1st one would need to be here. Okay, so that means I can start on beat 4 and play 4 and 1. So in the song, 4 and 1. Does that make sense? So it's important that we start the run at the right time. Remember, we're starting on beat 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. That was the run that we did in the right hand. So again, this is just a matter of calculation. Find out where you need to end by looking at that next downbeat of the next measure. Okay, I know I need to end here. Then calculate what run are you doing. Okay, here we chose to do eighth notes, and we chose to do it over a span of 1 beat, beat 4. So we knew that 1 beat equals 2 eighth notes. So we'd have 2 eighth notes, and then the next one needed to be our downbeat of the next measure, A. So we started here, 4 and 1. That was a simple, very short run, but let's do it. Let's do it again later in the song to kind of give you an idea of how you can calculate some longer runs. Okay, I'm looking now at the end of this 2nd line in the chorus. What a day of rejoicing that will be. And you'll notice we stay on the same chord for all 3 of these beats. So this is a whole because we've got 3 beats where the melody doesn't do anything, and actually our chord doesn't really do anything either. We've got these echoing parts, but the chord doesn't change. It's an A flat 7 chord all the way through. And then notice we've got this little pickup here but the next downbeat doesn't actually happen till the F. So here's something important. Again, remember I said whenever you find a whole, find your next downbeat. So even though these are the next notes, we're not going to run our run into these notes. We're going to run it into this downbeat here. We want to end it on the F, not on the A flat or the D flat here. We're looking for the next downbeat. These are just the pickup beat, beat 4. All right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Downbeat of the next measure is here. So here's the whole, here's the downbeat of the next measure. So whatever run we do, we know it needs to end on an F on the downbeat of the next measure, on beat 1 of the next measure. Okay, so we've got a little more space here than we did earlier. We've got actually 4 beats because we've got 3 beats here, and then we've got the 4th beat, which is the pickup here, that we're still going to be playing our run because remember, we're not ending it until beat 1. So we play this on beat 1 of this measure. Then we've got beats 2, beat 3, and beat 4 before we need to end our run on beat 1. So that actually gives us, if we play this on beat 1, day of rejoicing that will be. There's beat 1, and then let's say that we want to use beats 2, 3, and 4 to do our run, and then end it on beat 1 of this measure. That means we have 3 beats of run to do. So let's do eighth notes again. If we have 3 beats before we get to the downbeat of the next measure, and we're using eighth notes, 3 beats times 2 eighth notes per beat gives us 6 eighth notes that we can fit in, right? beat 1, then we have 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 eighth notes that we can fit in before we get to this F. So that means we play this on beat 1, and then 2 and 3 and 4 and, those are all going to be eighth notes, and then the 7th is going to be the F here. So we play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That 7th note needs to be our F of this downbeat of the measure. Again, that's if we're starting on beat 2. So we play B. What a day of rejoicing that will be. Dun, 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 all. Okay? So we know that if the F is going to be number 7, we'll just count backwards through our D-flat scale, 7 notes, and find out where we need to start. So let's do that at the piano. Okay, so here we are at the piano. Again, we're still in the key of D-flat. There's our E-flat octave. Okay, 1, and then we know we need to eventually get to this F when we the word all, but we're going to count down. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this means our first note in our run needs to be the G flat. Okay, so let's just count this out and see if it works. If we start the run on beat 2 with eighth notes, will we end up on the downbeat on the F? 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Indeed we do. We land right where we needed to. So more in tempo here. Notice how that worked out very nicely for us. All right. So again, this is how we calculate our right hand runs. It's simple calculation that you'll just count how many beats you have. Are you wanting to do eighth notes? That's a good place to start because it's easy to calculate how many eighth notes fit in a beat. You don't have to worry about triplets. And then it's just easy to use a major scale of the key that you're already in and just count backwards that many beats. And just remember that you need to end on the downbeat of the next measure. Okay? Let's say I want to do something different than eighth notes. Let's say I want to do a triplet run instead. Let's go back to this one here. So sing His mercy and His grace. Remember, we have a 2-beat whole, and then our downbeat is right here. Okay? So if we hold that note for 1 beat and then we use that 2nd beat of the whole as our run, which is what we did before, then we'll have 1 beat of a run, and then we end on this downbeat of this next measure. So, and His grace, and then beat 4 is when we do our run. Now before, when we did that with eighth notes, we had 2 eighth notes to fit into beat 4, because there's 2 eighth notes in beat 4. But if we're doing triplets, instead of doing 2 notes to a beat, triplets give you 3 notes to a beat. So, and His grace, dun 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 dun, instead of and His grace 4 and 1, we now have on beat 4 and His grace 4 and a 1. Dun 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 dun. So we have three notes to fit into our beat here, and then the 4th needs to be that downbeat, that A flat. Okay, so what might that look like at the piano? Let's take a look here. Okay, so in the key of D flat here, there's beat 3, and then beat 4, we need to do some kind of run with 3 notes, and the 4th one is going to be our A flat. Now we've got some options here. If we wanted to do the scale like we've been doing, we would just count, okay, here's 4, 3, 2, 1, so then I need to start on A flat. We could do that. We could do, we can do that, so you see how that fits. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 1. There's our triplet 1. Okay, we start on that just by doing the basic math again. There's our 1, 2, 3, and then we land on 4 on the downbeat. Another option, if we wanted to use the chromatic scale instead of just the D flat scale, we could just start on the F like we did before. Remember, before we started on F and just did eighth notes, 4 and 1. But since we're now doing a triplet, instead of just eighth notes, instead of 2 beats, we have 3 beats, or instead of 2 notes, 2 eighth notes to add in, we now have 3 notes because we're adding a triplet here. So if we started here, we can add in that G natural instead and just start on the F and do 1, 2, 3, 4. So triplet 1. Do you see how that works? so we can fit that in as well. All still starting on beat 4. We're not starting any sooner. We're just doing a triplet instead of an eighth note, so we can fit 3 notes in, so we can use that chromatic instead. If we want to use triplets instead of eighth notes here, what might we do? Okay, so let's say this time, instead of starting on beat 2, remember we've got a 4-beat whole. We've got 3 beats here, and then our 4th beat is still just a pickup. We don't actually get to the next downbeat until here. So we've got 4 whole beats in this measure before we get here. Okay, so let's say last time we did this, we did eighth notes and we started on beat 2 with our run. This time, let's start with our run on beat 3. Let's hold this for 2 beats, and then 3 and 4 we'll do triplets. So 1, 2, triplet, triplet, done. 1, 2, 3, and a 4 and a 1. Okay, that's how that will work. All right, so that means triplet, triplet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 6 triplet notes to fit in, and then the 7th needs to be our F. Okay, so as I recall, that's actually exactly where we were last time. So we should just be able to start on that G flat again. Let's see if that works. 1, 2, triplet, triplet, 1. See how that works? We waited an extra beat to start, but we could still start at the same place because we're now doing triplets instead of eighth notes, so we're fitting in a couple extra notes. Okay? What if we, instead of starting on the G, what if we wanted to start somewhere else? Let's say we wanted to start on the A flat instead. We could do that. I mean, it would be nice, right? We're on an A flat 7 chord here. So starting on the A flat, you might think that sounds, again, a lot of this is really a lot of preference. Hopefully you can see that you have a lot of room here. So let's say I wanted to start on my A flat. That means I need to still get here on beat 7. Remember, I have to use 6 beats and then, or 6 notes, and then 7 needs to be the F. We figured that out using this triplet pattern. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, triplet, triplet, 7. This needs to be number 7, okay? So if I start here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oh, I'm already on the F and I'm not to 7 yet. So what does that mean? Well, that means I need to go back and somewhere add in an extra note somewhere so that I won't get here until 7 instead of on 6. Okay, this is a mistake I actually see with pianists a lot, is that by miscalculating their notes, they get to their target note a little early, and so they end up doing something like this. And then they end up hitting that target note twice. That's okay, but there's something a lot smoother and that flows a lot better about running right into that note instead of getting there earlier and just hitting it again, okay? So try to plan it out so you land right on the downbeat instead of landing there earlier and just hitting it again. So what can I do? Well, I can add in a chromatic note somewhere. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I can add in, let's say I want to add in my E natural here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now that equals out the way that I wanted it to. That gets me right on beat 7. So I can do 1, 2, triplet, triplet. Just by adding in that extra note that's not in the scale, the E, I was able to adjust things so that I landed right on 7 on the F. So you see how that works? You have a lot of freedom. You can kind of start where you want as long as you end on that target note, and you can just add in some chromatic notes in the middle to make it come out right. Usually I like to add them closer to the end of the scale like I did there instead of at the beginning, but if you wanted to add them at the beginning, you could. Triplet, triplet. You could do that. You could add the A natural instead of the E natural. 2, triplet, triplet. You know, that sounds good too. You can, either way, whatever is your preference. So this is where you can start to get really creative with these. Just remember, count it out, make sure that you're getting this correctly. So hopefully this shows you that you're going to need to work these things out ahead of time. You're probably not going to be able to throw a run in the very first time on the fly in the middle of a song service. You're going to need to go to the piano ahead of time if you know the songs you're going to be playing, and sit down and find the holes and count things out and work out your runs the way you want to and plan it so that you can end things correctly. And then what I would challenge you to do is, once you found a run that you like, such as something like that, I use that one a lot in a lot of different songs, find out what you're doing there. So here I'm starting I'm starting on the 5. So we're in the key of D flat. That means A flat is my 5th note in the scale. I'm starting on my 5, and I'm just running up using this chromatic note right at the end, and then running into my 3rd note, which is F. Again, in the key of D flat, F is your 3. So then find other songs and other keys where you might do the same thing. If we're in the key of A flat, my 5 is E flat. I could do that right there. Same exact run, just in a different key. If we're in the key of C, my 5 is G. Get used to playing it in a bunch of different keys, and then you'll start to notice and hear spots where it can fit in different songs. But you're going to have to practice it to really get used to it again before you try throwing it in on the fly. This is something you want to work out ahead of time and get used to knowing where these things fit before you start inserting them into your music. Hopefully you can see it. It really is just simple counting. Hopefully that takes away some of the fear and dread out of, I'll never be able to add runs to my music. You can do it. It just takes the dedication to work with them ahead of time, find out where you can insert it, where do you want to start, how many beats do you have to fill, are you going to do a triplet, are you going to do 8th notes? Those are your usual options. We didn't really get into 16th notes today because those are really fast runs. I want to at least get you started with some of the basics. But that is the process. That's how you work out your runs, and then the more you start doing those same runs, you'll see other spots, other holes that are very similar to holes that you've filled before, and that you can fill them using those same runs, or some that are very similar with minor tweaks. And eventually you'll get to the point where in any key, any song, you can hear these in your head and know what they sound like and know when to start them. You may make mistakes at first when you try doing that, but keep working with it and you will get more comfortable with them. So I hope that was a help to you in just trying to figure out how to add runs, specifically in the right hand. We'll talk more about the left hand maybe in a future video. The process is actually very similar, but right hand is especially where a lot of people like to add a lot of embellishments and runs and fills. The left hand's doing a lot of chording and octaves and things. So this gives you the process. If you stick to this process, you find your hole, then find the target note, which is the next downbeat after that hole, the next beat 1, and then calculate how many beats you have to fill. Do you want to use 8th notes? Do you want to use triplets? Okay, then how many notes can be in your run? What does it need to end on? And then just work backward through your scale, major scale, chromatic scale. If you know some of the other fancy scales, the blues, pentatonic, others, then feel free to use those and improvise in the different scales. But this is the way to count out and figure out your runs. Know them, and then once you find one you like, practice it in different keys, practice it in different songs, different holes, and then the more that you know it, eventually you'll be able to find yourself start sticking it in on the fly in your hymn playing. Hopefully that was a help to you. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, here, the YouTube channel, Excellence in Church Music, please do so. I'm trying to put out content on a regular basis to help church pianists and just give them resources, give them music, give them tips. And so feel free to subscribe, and then you'll be able to catch up on all of our content as we put it out. Hopefully that was a help to you. Have a great day, everyone.